Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is our Wisdom of the Sages daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host, bestie, and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha. Welcome to our show. It's our Srimad-Bhagavatam class show.
Is it a class or a show?
It's a class show. It's a classy show. I remember the day we decided to call it a show. It was like last year before it was Wisdom of the Sages, but I can't remember. It was this whole thing. It's like, we're going to just call it a show. And it was lovingly embraced by the students. I think if it's a show, it gives me more license to be, just to be myself. If it's a class, I have to just be a little bit more official.
A little less intimidating too, right? It sounds more entertaining.
More entertaining. You know what? Let spiritual wisdom entertain us. My famous Oscar Wilde quote. It's famous because I always quote it. It's famous for me because I always quote it. I'm not more famous than Oscar Wilde, but he said, "Give the people truth, but make them laugh, or they will kill you." Isn't that good?
Or they will kill you.
Or they will kill you.
I'll keep that in mind.
So, how's your lockdown going?
It's going okay. You know, this week in particular, I haven't really left the building. When I want to get outside, I go up to the roof.
Right. That's like a New Yorker's escape. The roof. There's a whole like roof life in New York. Roof. Isn't it?
It's increasing now with the
New Yorkers.
lockdown too.
Is there other people on the roof just like up there?
I've met people that live in my building that I said, do you guys live in the building? And they're like, yeah. I was like, are you new? I haven't seen you before. They're like, yeah, we've been here 8 years.
New Yorkers can live right next to a person and never know them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, I know the people on my floor, but I don't know all the people in the building, but usually I see them. And these people I haven't even seen. I think there's like 35 apartments in my building, but I didn't even recognize these people.
Yeah.
But we connected. It was pretty cool.
I hope from 7 feet distance.
Yeah, it was. We were maintaining our distance for sure.
People get close. I'm gonna start carrying a stick around. Keep your distance.
But it's going okay. It's making me. I'm starting to think more about. I don't know. Maybe we get into this some other time. But like,
mortality.
Where the world's going. Where the world's going.
You know what? It's almost scary to think 2 steps ahead.
It's a little scary, but it's a little. To me, it's a little bit like I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. There's something like that too,
The collapse you've been waiting.
No, not exactly the collapse, but my faith is that the world's got to wake up at some point. But before we do, we probably got to go through a lot.
Right.
And I don't want us to have to go through a lot, but at the same time, I want us to wake up. And
sure.
So how exactly all this plays out, I don't know, but I'm kind of, there's part of me that's definitely, and we have some sad news that we wanted to share this morning too, I think, right? But still, I feel for people and I want this to be as mild as possible, but I also want us to wake up and stop harming the animals, stop harming the earth, stop harming each other,
And you can complain about it and you can say something about it, but the earth really needed a dramatic change.
Yeah.
For things for that wake up to happen. It seems
like that. And so I agree with you. It's a little scary, but there is part of me that's saying, okay, let's go through, I was wondering, is this all going to happen in my lifetime? Am I going to, I have faith that the world is going to wake up. And so I'm wondering, and I'm assuming that it's going to involve a bit of discomfort or pain to get there. And so I'm wondering how much it'll be, and would it happen in my lifetime? And this may be, I don't mean to speak all ominous or anything like that, but I do find it's getting, we're watching history right now, and it's getting interesting. So I feel prepared for it in the sense that I feel like I'm mentally prepared for it, spiritually prepared for it in a sense, you know, going into it. But, you know, I think as a community, we can all prepare each other for it and try to be the best instruments of positive change that we can be.
In reference to the Bhagavatam, what we're reading, it's sort of like the material world sort of just like slices away any type of shelter except Krishna. You know, I have some other plan for safety, for security, for well-being, and it can all get chopped away in a moment, and it leaves you with nothing but Krishna, or nothing but your higher power, your source, whatever you want to call it, Krishna. I just say sweet baby Krishna, but it could be your source, your higher power, divinity. But anything else I take shelter in gets chopped away quick.
Yep.
And I guess this is what the Bhagavatam leads us to, like leaves us nothing except that connection, which is like what yoga is about. This is what yoga is about.
Yeah. I you know, I called our friend, hopefully he'll tune in today, but our friend Tara, and who lives in Bengal. And
Tara was a friend of ours. He organizes my trips in India, but we've known him since we were monks. He's sort of like he's our age, and but
one of my closest friends.
Yeah, he moved to India a long time ago, and he's married with a child.
And he's married to a Polish woman, and his wife and son were in Poland. He was in Bengal trying to get out to see them. And
he can't get in. He can't get in Poland.
He had to take a taxi from Calcutta to Delhi and get on the last possible flight that was arranged by the Polish embassy. And I just happened to call him. I was just thinking, man, how's he doing? And, you know, and one of the sad thing that's coming up that I'm hearing from people in India is that Westerners are, you know, foreigners in general are kind of, there's a lot of tension that the local people are feeling towards foreigners, and seeing them as bringing the disease into the country. So even if sometimes can be a little tough to go out and shop and do things like that, you know. So in any case, he was trying to get out, and I managed to call him, and he was at the airport about to leave, and we had a nice conversation.
That's
yeah,
that's horrible.
Maybe you want to share the sad news that we wanted to share.
Our friend Kulavir, his mother died, which was really sad. His parents both got coronavirus, so we want to extend our prayers and support of his family.
He's a regular listener.
His daughter knows my daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, he's a regular listener to the show, and you know, a longtime devotee. Also came out of the hardcore scene, and both his parents came down with the virus. And you know, to me, that's one of the sad things, is that, you know, a devotee wants to be there with their family, you know, when they're passing away. And I think his mother was hospitalized. His father couldn't enter the hospital, although they both had symptoms, and his mother passed away. So our prayers to Kulavira, to his mother, to his family, to his friends.
You know, I just want to also share part of this philosophy that we practice is that we are not alone in anything that we do. If I do something inappropriate, something bad, something gruesome, something, you know, I don't just affect myself. I affect everybody that's around me. If I rob a bank, if I'm a murderer, I'm not just affecting me. I'm affecting everybody that loves me. I affect my children. If I go to jail, that affects my children. The same thing is true with any good thing I do, any positive thing I do, any spiritual thing I do, any activity that brings me higher. That's going to affect everybody within my universe. And if you can't get into a hospital like Kulavir, like he's the guy's dedicated himself to a spiritual path. And even though I'm not sure of his particular situation, but they're not letting anybody in the hospitals. The best thing we can do for our loved ones, period, is to get really focused on our own spiritual life. And to the degree that there is a loving relationship, all that love they give now gets supercharged, because they're loving a person on a spiritual path. And your sincerity about your spiritual path affects everybody. It affects 7 generations previous to you, 7 generations afterwards. I mean, we get that it affects our parents. We get that it affects our children. But generationals, when we change ourselves, we're changing generations of relatives, of friends, of well-wishers, of community, just by going in and working on ourselves. I mean, you can probably see in your own life how, to the degree that you've changed who you are and or worked on your own personal transformation, that it's upgraded your relationships, it's upgraded your friendships, it's upgraded your marriage, it's upgraded your relationship with your children. It'll naturally do that. I mean, some people, it just changes them. They just don't want nothing to do with you anymore. And that happens too. But for the most part, those people that are tied to you, they're thinking about you, they're meditating upon you, and they're becoming, and they're always loving you. And therefore they're making this, they're getting benefit just from you taking care of yourself. How about that?
I will remember that.
Yeah, it's interesting how when you have time on your hands, a lot of us aren't working. Some people are working like ridiculously, and some people are just like, okay, let's take another online yoga class. You know, so if we're in that situation where we have time on our hands, it's really great it's a great, like, almost experiment. Like, what am I going to do with my time today? Now I have free time. Am I going to use that free time to just blow and just, like, you know, consume foolish information? Or am I going to really use it for my self-edification? Usually I don't have time to, you know, do some meditation or to read a book that would be good for me or something. What am I going to do now in that downtime? Can I be, like, sort of, like, disciplined? I'm not saying we should have to, like, turn ourselves up to be this this crazy hustler in the world. Okay, let's try a new online business, but just to sort of, like, be grounded, because oftentimes we haven't had time to be that person, even just to deal with people in our family, obviously, or in the people obviously that are close to us. Do I have some time to have some quality time with them? Or am I just going to keep the busyness going even though the whole world has stopped? Can I keep my busy mind and chill it out a little bit? So anyway, that's something, the stuff I'm dealing with right now. Sure. As well.
I noticed that our friend Zoe Archer, who's a Zoomer, just posted here, and she's working in hospitals too. So our prayers for you, Zoe, and our thanks to you. But she mentions we just changed our policy at the hospital. No one dies alone. No mother labors alone. A loved one is allowed in the name of humanity and human connection. So that's nice to hear.
That is nice. Zoe was just with us in India. She's a special lady. Okay, so yeah. Yeah.
Or I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something you want to say?
Nah. I was going through a hard day yesterday, personally.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah. Just sort of like just dealing with my mind. And the weather has just been upstate. The weather's just been a little cold and rainy repeatedly.
Same
you know,
here.
So if you want to get outside, you really got to be like, I'm going to get outside and I'm going to bundle up and I'm just going to do it. And so there, Maya, you know, but it's been a little extra. So I think I a little spun out, and I spun out a little.
Okay. Well, let's spin back in.
Let's spin back in. Thank you. Okay. We'll start with our invocation. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of our conquest, one should offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving loving service to the transcendent Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will become established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we're reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 18. And this is Bhishma, the great grandsire of the Kuru kingdom. He's one of the Mahajans, or the great souls of one of the 12 Mahajans in Indian literature, Vedic literature. And he's on his deathbed, and he's riddled with arrows. He's on the battlefield. Great sages have come around to see him pass. He's waiting for this auspicious moment to leave his body. Krishna's brought forth. The Pandavas and Yudhisthira are there. He's about to instruct Yudhisthira on the duties of how to be an emperor. And he's glorifying Krishna right now. Right? Was that the Cliff Note version? You're muted, sir. You're so polite. You mute yourself when I talk.
No, I
guess I should do that too. That way you won't get all my slurping and snorting and banging around.
I mute myself when you chant those invocation prayers because I don't want the mic to freak out and go back and forth.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
But sometimes I forget.
But that was a good that was a good sort of summary of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think that was perfect.
Okay. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us. And he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Nice. Little purport.
Why not?
The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. The mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, the authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the second verse of the 4th chapter, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. Quote that verse, Kaustubha.
Advati pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya.
I was thinking from the fourth chapter.
Huh?
4th chapter.
Isn't that what I'm quoting from?
Yes.
Which 4th chapter are you talking about?
I thought they were doing 4:2.
Which is what I was quoting, wasn't it?
No, you're doing 4:34.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. Same chapter, but you're right. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarasyo vitu. Thank you.
Bhagavad Gita fun. It's fun. The Bhagavad Gita is like a game. It's like a fun game. You can make all this stuff into a fun game. You know that?
You can. That's what I like about you, Raghu. You make it all a fun game.
It's all fun. Why not make it a fun game?
So you wanted to speak on that, I think, right? A little bit on that.
Well, it's important that, and I never got this, and I get it, and I really get it now. The parampara, we hear from, and I'm going to share about it. First of all, I'm going to share about what this is about, hearing in parampara, but also I'm going to ask Kaustubha some questions about it too, because we go. First of all, there's an important point to make about dogma. It's almost as if some spiritual practices, dogma is not. They don't speak in dogma as a pejorative. They almost speak it as a. It's like dogmas. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's faith. You need faith. Just have faith. But oftentimes there's such a massive leap of faith in traditional study of religion that it drives thinking people a little crazy. And so the idea of faith and dogma in Vedic tradition is that we're taking small, and I ask this of the students too. I never believe things that I actually fully haven't understood. I leave it open to, it could be. It could be. I don't know, but it could be. But here's what I do get. Like, and so these, and we go through these very foundational things. I understand that I can notice my body and I can notice my mind and I can change my mind. I notice that my intelligence is something subtle. I can understand that the ego is something separate than me. I notice that chanting has an effect on me. It doesn't only calm my mind, it steadies my mind. I know I can understand that kirtan has effect in my consciousness. I understand the things I put in my ears and my eyes and my nose and my mouth create a new me. I can understand the concept of reincarnation. Like, we don't want to believe so much, and I've seen this happen, that people start to like, and truthfully, especially with this Vedic thought, anyone who says, I'm totally in, I'm in the club, accept me, I got it, I read a book, I'm totally into this, I start to question them. I start to question their discernment. It's like, if you build a Jenga tower on this type of blind faith, you're just one little stick away. You know what a Jenga tower is?
I don't, but I was kind of putting it together.
Game, like they stack these Jenga pieces. You pull that thing out, the whole thing collapses. Faith needs to be done in small increments, or else what's going to happen, you're going to build this very big, elaborate idea of Vedic this and Vedic that and Vedic authority, and the whole thing will collapse. You got to take it little chunks at a time. And the faith gets challenged, but what's really challenged is you're starting to accept things that you don't fully understand. And it's understandable because it's almost like you're on a slide, like, woo, like a water slide of all this information and it all, and there's nothing like bad with it, with like eating the whole plate, but I highly recommend you do it in small doses. This is what I really get. Because if you start getting too lofty and too big and start to just believe in the things that you haven't fully realized yet, somebody's going to come along and just kick that Jenga piece out from under you. And then you're going to start to question even the very things that did make sense to you. You don't start back at where you started. You go below it again. You start to question the very things like, does mantras mean that? So it's not really a challenge of faith. I asked the students to get what you.
Sorry about that. We went down for a second.
I went down. Were you there?
Well, I was
just
there
flashed
too.
down. I saw a gigantic version of Michelle Berger on my face.
We're back. You're saying you challenge the students too?
I can't remember. But the idea is that.
Do they just like keeping the company of like-minded souls?
Did I just lose him again? No. Yeah. I say, yeah, it's just like, I challenge the students to really note down like this, and it's sometimes good to just write it down. This is what I fully understand. There's something powerful in the company of like-minded souls. There's something powerful in the company of people who want to upgrade their life. There's something powerful in consuming things that bring me higher in my ears and my eyes and my nose. Like, really write down what you fully 100% get. And even me, I've been in this game, for 32 measly years or so of bhakti. Do I understand that God is everything? Well, that's one definition of God. Do I understand that God is a blue cowherd boy? Could be. Could be. I can't say I fully understand that. I could say it could be. Could be. Do I understand the great sages who have gone ahead of me, who are liberated from vice, who are like, that they've accepted Krishna? Yeah, I can accept that. See, it also helps to have people, people who've been your Lewis and Clark. If you're not from the United States, you probably don't know who Lewis and Clark is, but they're the ones who went ahead and they forged their way to the West Coast.
Pioneers.
They're pioneers. So Lewis and Clark said, you're going to pass a giant river here. Be careful. Lewis and Clark said they're panthers once you get to Michigan. Be careful there. Lewis and Clark said, so they already went ahead and they could
laid
already
out a map.
And they've got a map. They've got a good direction. There's going to be a great desert here, and then you're going to hit the Pacific Ocean. And so it's good to have these people that went ahead. And that's why this whole system of, which we're going to get into next, is this parampara of people that went ahead of us. I think people in 12-step programs get this. There's an idea of a sponsor, a person who's had sobriety from their drug of choice, whatever, drug of favor. They've had sobriety from that vice, and they've been maybe 3 years ahead of you on that path. And they can tell you the pitfalls and what the problems are and what you should focus on and where you're deviating, because they've already walked that path. So these are certain things I do get, and I want to write them down. And then the other things that the masters have spoken about, I can say, that could be. I don't quite get that now. And I think it's safe to say in my life, there were different things that I learned in Bhakti that didn't make sense at 22. But at 54, from this vantage point, I 100% get that now. At 22, I didn't get that. So at different vantage points of our life, the picture becomes Hair Mustache has accepted his name as Hair Mustache. I don't know if you picked up on that, Kaustubha. He's changed his name on the screen to Hair Mustache. And Fräulein winking, gee. Anyway. So parampara. Let's go to this next important point. You want to say anything about parampara? Because I'm going to quiz you on it. It's not a quiz to challenge you. It's a quiz to challenge what we teach for my own benefit, so I have a good understanding. But
all right.
Maybe I'll just explain the basics first.
Okay.
We learn this from a disciplic succession. We are not picking up a Bhagavad Gita with just the translations and trying to figure out what this means to me. And you see this a lot of times in the yoga community. I got a Bhagavad Gita. We're going to have a Bhagavad Gita study group. You're going to get some benefit out of there because it's the words of Krishna and Arjuna. You're going to get some benefit from studying the Yoga Sutras.
I think you need to mute everyone.
Oh, come on, you guys. You're going to get some benefit from picking up wisdom literature. But we have to understand this stuff in a context. If I pull out a carburetor from a car and just say, hey, what do you think of this? I don't know what this is. It's like if you're unfamiliar with cars, it just seems like a peculiar, I don't even know what a carburetor looks like, by the way. But
I don't exactly know what it is.
I know how to put the gas in, and that's about it. I'm one of those guys, if there's like smoke coming out of the car, I pull over the car and open the hood, look in there like, okay, I'm looking for a giant on-off switch or something. Anyway, this is the you have to understand the context of these teachings. And that's why when we hear sacred literature, we hear it from teachers who've heard it from teachers who's heard it from teachers like this. It's got to be trickling down a Vedic system. And the fourth chapter speaks of this, and they speak of these lineages that you have to get your knowledge in a lineage. And you have and therefore the teachers have already gone through the same process, and they can guide you in the same way. We can use that 12-step analogy. They're already sober, and therefore they're giving advice to the sponsee. So, and there's 4 bona fide lineages headed by Brahma, Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, and Lakshmi. Lakshmi, is that it? Lakshmi?
Yep. Lakshmi, Shri.
Lakshmi. Shri Devi. So these are the 4 bona fide lineages. We are coming in a line of Lord Brahma. And then ultimately Krishna is the ultimate source of knowledge. Now, how do you know this? Because there's a lot of if you're a little thoughtful, you could poke a lot of holes in this. And my discerning mind will poke a lot of holes in this idea. Like the first one being the telephone game. If you don't know what the telephone game is, you have a party of 20 kids, 20 little 9-year-old kids, and the first one whispers in the ear, she sells seashells by the seashore. And then he whispers it into the friend's ear, and they whisper it into someone's ear, and it goes around the circle like that. And then it finally gets back, and the person who says it last says something completely different. This is a problem someone could argue with parampara. But I will say, on the parampara's behalf, it works. Whatever we're doing, it works. It actually works. That's like the first defense in charge of it. And you will come into contact with bhakti in a tradition, and it will make more sense to you than you just walking around Barnes and Nobles or some bookstore, or reading some book on Vedic information. You'll have so much more of an understanding than even at academia. It's at a university where they're studying teachings of the East, etc. That's for sure. You'll understand it better than you've ever had a better understanding. But can I just ask some questions to you, Kaustubha, if you don't mind? About
Yes.
Here's some other holes I find in this, and maybe you could clear it up.
All right.
If you trace back the parampara in our lineage, but other ones too, they have these next level. You have Brahma, you have Shiva, you have Lakshmi, etc., who are ancient. Of course, they're ancient. Brahma's ancient.
About as ancient as it gets.
Pretty as much as the first person. That's pretty ancient. It's pretty old. It's older than me. But then you have this massive jump of millennia where you go to Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Swami. It's like you miss some rungs on the ladder. What do you think?
No, those rungs are full, but some of those early rungs are like really long rungs.
It's a long rung.
Yeah, like you can go from, Vyasadeva to Madhva or something like that, because Madhva can go to the Himalayas and see Vyasadeva.
Isn't that what happened? It's like Madhva had darshan.
Yeah.
Madhva had darshan of Vyasadeva.
Yeah.
So that chops down 3,000 years of rungs.
No, more than that. I
More.
think 200. Yeah, but well, I think we first had to step back, and you're poking, you're kind of questioning the idea of parampara, and can we find some holes with this? But what the Vedic thinkers are doing is they're taking, it's, this question of epistemology, like how do we understand what is what? How do we understand what is true? And they break it down into three. There are three ways that we can gain knowledge. And one is called pratyakshya, what I directly perceive through my senses. And one is called anumana, what I can kind of speculate about and try to derive through my thinking. And third is called shabda, what I hear from other sources. And then, so the Vedic philosophers have analyzed these three and determined that the first two are very potentially faulty because, my senses are very limited. What I can perceive is it's a very tiny scope. So how am I going to understand something that's beyond sense perception with my senses? So if I'm asking a question like, where does everything come from? And if that happens to be beyond my senses, then my senses aren't going to do me very well to figure it out.
Sure.
To speak of the fact that they're so faulty. And they'll give very simple examples, like if I look at the sun and I hold my hand up to it, my hand seems bigger than the sun. So obviously my senses aren't good, aren't suitable for figuring that out. So, okay, well, therefore I could think about it. With my mind, I could determine that the sun's at a further distance and my hand's closer. So what about anumana? What about my speculation? And then they'll find faults with our speculation and how, one speculation is always overcome by another speculation and so on and so forth. And they determine that ultimately shabda, hearing from the right source, is an infallible process if you're hearing from the right source. So when Srila Prabhupada mentions in this commentary, he says the mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. This analogy is used to help us understand the value of shabda. Because if I don't know who my father is, I might try to figure it out by looking around through my senses. But I may or may not get it right. I may try to find someone that looks like me or whatever. I may try to figure it out by my speculation. But there's one way that I can know, and I can know for sure. And that is by asking my mother. Right? She'll know. Hopefully,
The Vedas are used in the analogy as the mother.
Yeah.
Also.
So the Vedas, exactly. So the question is, if we want to understand what's beyond, what is the origin? Here it's talking about Narayana. You know, we're going to hear about Narayana. I believe that's what was said in this verse, right? He is the first Narayana. Okay. So in other words, he's that being from whom everything comes from. I'm not going to figure that out by my senses. I'm not going to figure that out by speculation. I can figure that out if I hear from the right source. I can figure out who my father is if I hear from my mother. And I won't be able to figure it out other ways. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada he's speaking in this way. You know, the Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process, right? The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic. And I believe what he means by dogmatic there is one definition of dogmatic is it's characterized or given to the expression of opinions very strongly or positively as if they were facts. And he's saying these aren't opinions. These are, you know, this is being handed down from the person that actually knows it. Like it's my mother's authority to tell me who my father is isn't just an opinion. She knows. And so that's, you know, that analogy is used to understand. So then he says the mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the second verse. So that's where the famous verse, Evam Parampara Praptam, comes. Okay, so that being said, you had some...
Well, that was my... you know, skipping the rungs of the ladder.
Okay.
Maybe you can explain how there's a check and balance system, because it seems like the telephone game analogy is a good analogy.
Yeah.
I can tell something to a student, they could tell it to another student, and by the time 4 students later, it's completely screwed up. I mean, I'm sure people have quoted you saying, yeah, well, Kaustubha said this. And you're like, I never said that. You know, we have that happen all the day. Sometimes I'll get quoted for something good that I didn't say also. And then sometimes I'll get something Raghunath said. I never said that. Okay. So how do you protect yourself from the telephone game in the parampara system?
So if you take your telephone game and you said, let's say you have 15 kids and they're going around in a circle, but if they each also had written down what they were saying, then they would be passing that around too. And that would help, you know, so and therefore it's so important that spiritual teachers substantiate what they say by quoting from the Shastra, by quoting from the Vedic texts, right? It's not that I'm making it up myself. It's not that I'm interpreting, you know, I'm kind of coming up with something through anumana, through my own speculation, or through my pratyakshya, through what I've observed. Those are valuable sources of information, but then we check them with the shabda, with the hearing from the Vedic sources. So the teachers are supposed to, their job is to understand that things change with time, but the absolute truth doesn't. So the job of the teacher is not to create new teachings, but it's to help us understand those teachings in the context of the world that we're living in today. Right? That's the job of the teacher. And so they're handing down exactly what they've heard. And the way that we check that is they're substantiating it by pointing out in the Shastra, pointing out in the text where this is said and how this is understood. But they're translating it for us in a sense. They're helping us understand how that applies in our world today, so that you can make sense of it. Because you may be living in a different culture, in a different society, and we may have trouble putting it all together. And so they're saying, no, the truth is still there, but understand it. Like, let me explain it in this way so that it makes sense to you. And then now you've got it. And now you look at that same Shastra and it makes it clearer sense to you. And that's what the teacher or the guru does. And they hand it down. They hand it down without, changing it. That's the idea, that there's a tradition, and in a shared sense of value that let us hand this down without it being changed. And the that entire sampradaya, or that entire lineage, which can include all of us, that the importance of that is instilled, so that everyone's aware that, hey, is what we're hearing right now, is it consistent with what's in the sacred texts? Is it? So that we all become kind of educated like that. And in this way, you preserve a tradition. And at the same time, hopefully have the wisdom to adapt it to the world that we're living in. Otherwise, we just need the book, right?
Right. You need that teacher to explain it and make it relevant. And what we're doing here too is important for just whoever we meet that is coming off as a teacher, as an authority, a course I'm signing up for. Like, where are you getting this from? People speak off the top of their head all the time, like, and it's going to be like this, and it's like this, and it's like this. Where do you hear that from? On whose authority are you speaking? And that's one thing that this learning and tradition has trained me in, to like, where are you pulling that from, man? It makes you have them go to, what is your authority? On whose authority are you speaking? And that's where you say a good teacher will quote or reference, spiritual literature.
Agreed. Aditi has a question about all this. Shall we take it?
Yeah. Want to read it?
Why don't you just go ahead and say it, Aditi? You may need to unmute her.
Okay.
The question is, if we know that faith trickles down via lineage, how do we know that it is always the truth that we are getting? You reference to trickling it down. It happens slowly from a sea, for instance, I can imagine in my mind. But if it is coming down slowly, I would imagine that the truth is getting lost at the top, or is staying at the top and not coming down to us. So maybe that's the question. So how do we know that the truth is getting trickled down? That's number one. And then as a disciple, how do we know that we're getting all of it? It's a related question.
Raghu, want to take that? You're muted, Raghu. Raghunath, you are muted right now.
I'm going to pass that one to my good friend, Kaustubha Das.
Okay. So it's interesting, because in the very verse that we're quoting, evam parampara praptam, imam rajarsyo vidhu, it's saying that this ancient yoga was handed down in the chain of disciplic succession, and it was given to the saintly kings, the rajarshis, right? Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsyo vidhu. They understood it in that way, these saintly kings. So Krishna's saying there was a system of handing down the knowledge of yoga and how it is applied in this world. It was understood by the saintly kings. But what is it? Evam paramparapatam imam rajarsyo vidhu sakala neha mahata yogo nashta parantapaha. It was nashta. It became lost. It became by the force of time. Sakala neha mahata. Right, that in the course of time, the science has been lost. And she says, therefore, I'm explaining it to you again. So yeah, time can kind of like deteriorate these things. But the Shastra remains, like the sacred text remains. So the challenge is always there. Is the mother the infallible source of understanding who the father is? In one sense she is, but, she may lie to us or something like that. We have to check. We have to check, is what I'm hearing based on the Shastra? This is the point. You take the Bhagavad Gita. It was spoken to Krishna. It was spoken by Krishna. Those that within the tradition have the faith that was 5,000 years ago. But even he's saying that this knowledge goes way back. I explained it to the sun god, who explained it to Manu. He goes, he explains it like that. And now I'm explaining it to you, Arjuna. And so then it's handed down. And we still have that book. We still have the Bhagavad Gita. And then we're going to hear someone explain the Bhagavad Gita to us. And then we have to apply our own, thought. Is this person actually representing it? Or are they not? Are they delivering it? Or are they not? We put it to the test. And that's what an aspiring yogi is meant to do. I'm going to hear from a teacher. I'm going to look at the teachings themselves. I'm going to try to determine, do they really understand it? Do they live it? Are they a walking embodiment of it? And when I hear it and I begin to experiment with it, do I get positive results? And then step by step, that faith would increase. So it's the Raghunath was beginning by saying that faith is something that's a gradual thing. The Gita says shanai, right? Step by step, gradually, that faith will build. So we put our teachers to the test, and we should understand it's not based on personal charisma. It's not based on the fact that they say things that are maybe comforting to us or what we want to hear or help us rationalize things that we do in our life. It's not because of the way that they look and the smile that they have or the glint in their eye or this or that. It has to do with, can they represent? Do they have the consciousness? Do they embody the teachings? Can they represent the teachings? And can they show me that this isn't me making this up? I'm just presenting what's already been presented and what's been handed down again and again and again. Ultimately, we're going to have to experiment with ourselves. We're going to have to experiment with it and see if we get the kind of results that we'd hope to get. And then if we do, then faith can increase. I hope that answers somewhat your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay. It's nothing's going to be so easy that it's just like, it's going to require our introspection. It's going to require our practice. It's going to require our enthusiasm. It's going to require our patience. That's what spiritual life is going to require from us. Ultimately our humility, the verse that I quoted by mistake earlier, the one, Tadvidi pranipatena, it's also talking about how knowledge is transferred. It says, but it says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya, but that you're meant to inquire from a guru, from someone that has this knowledge, from a self-realized person, but you're meant to do it with humility and you're meant to do it with service. So it's saying that to really understand it, you need to adopt the entire correct disposition in order to receive this knowledge. It's not even an academic process. So all of this is important. All of this plays a role in the transfer of knowledge from the original source through the parampara, through the chain of disciplic succession. All of those members in that succession have to value the idea that I'm not changing it. I'm not taking credit for it. I'm not making it up. I'm handing it down as it is and simply trying to help others understand it in the modern context, in the current context. And so by hearing from that right source, but doing it with the right mood and the right mentality and the right disposition and the right humility, that opens us up. That's the process of receiving knowledge. And so sometimes the example is given as the guru it's like a pregnancy, right? If the woman is fertile and the man is potent, then birth can take place. And so both have to be right. The guru has to be potent. He has to have that knowledge, just like a man has a seed, the guru has to have that potent knowledge. And the guru and the disciple has to be fertile. They have to be, I think you're muted, but yes? Are you unmuted?
Come on.
Unmuted, Edie Raga.
There, you're unmuted.
Like receiving, you said?
Yeah, to receive. Just like the seed has to be potent and the ground has to be fertile for something to grow. The man has to be potent, the woman has to be fertile in order to have a child. The guru has to be potent and the disciple has to be fertile. Fertile in their disposition, right? In their humility and so on. That then the seed can be planted and it can grow. And bhakti can grow like that.
Man, I want to think of I wanted to go so much more with this show today, and we're running out of time. Maybe we could pick some up tomorrow, because I got 2 really good questions about guru that came in that I want to address. But I
hope that was helpful to DTG.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you for your.
I know it was great. It was great, and it was a great question. It's good sometimes when you're on a subject that someone feels it. I'm glad you picked that up. Anyway, I got 2 questions. Maybe we can hang with tomorrow. One was, Bridge was just saying, well, what about people I find God in my heart speaks to me. Why do I need a guru? And this is a very popular one in the yoga community. There are no gurus out there. We address this a lot, but it's a great thing to bring back up. There are no gurus out there. The real guru is you. You're the guru. You've got guru within. God is in the heart. We get that. That's a Vedic aphorism.
Chaitya guru.
Can't we? Yeah, the Chaitya guru. Can't we run with that? And another one was, someone privately asked me, and I won't mention the guru's name, what do you think about this guru? He's got followers. He's considered a wise person. What is your opinion on him? And I just want to give because I don't know who the person is. I don't know what he's like, but how do you do that? How do you discern and discern about like what is a real teacher and what qualifies them, at least according to the Vedic paradigm? And there is a criteria. There is like a checklist, so to speak, of who I'm going to listen from if I want to sort of receive bhakti. And it's not like again, it's not exclusive, but we're in a particular lineage of Krishna bhakti. And it's just like you can be a doctor in one country and not a doctor in another country, because some countries have different standards. You can learn massage therapy in New York City, and it won't maybe qualify to California because there's different standards. So the Vedic standard, they have a very refined standard to say someone is an authorized teacher. And maybe we can get into that tomorrow. You think that's a good way to go? And then of course, we're going to go to one of my funnest parts, because the next sentence in that purport, Prabhupada gives this whole thing. I'm just going to read this as we end. In the Bhagavad Gita, the truth is confirmed, the 2nd verse of the 4th chapter. Blah, blah, blah. The very same system is accepted universally as truth, but only the false arguer speaks against it. For example, modern spacecrafts fly in the sky. And when scientists say that they travel to the other side of the moon, men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak and the people in general believe them.
Yes. So I think what he's pointing out there is someone may say, I'm an empiricist. I don't have this religious faith, but practically everybody's operating on faith in one way or another.
Right.
I haven't been to the other side of the moon. So by pratyakshya, I can't determine what's there. By my anumana, I can't determine what's there. I can't just think about it and figure it out, but I hear from someone.
And then the question arises, did we even go to the moon?
You had to go there, didn't you? It's
the original conspiracy theory of Prabhupada. Anyway, we got to bring it there, whether you believe it or not. Maybe you can write, hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you write in. Really makes a difference. I've seen everybody write a 5-star review for us. It really helps getting out in the public eye. And thanks for all people who are joining Zoom. Zoom is a great way to see everybody, get to meet each other, and really build this community. And then we're going to have some we're going to get-togethers in New York City, me and Kaustubha, when this whole pandemic thing dies down and we can be in human contact again. We'll do a Wisdom of the Sages at the Bhakti Center family reunion. And people can fly in from all over, make a weekend of it, and do hours of Bhagavatam and some yoga and eat together. But if you want to join Zoom, Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. And tonight on Patreon, I'm giving a Sweet Baby Krishna class at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're on Patreon or you're interested in joining Patreon, it's a way to support us. And we're really appreciative of it. It's Wisdom of the Sages. I don't know. It's patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. And thanks for everybody who joined us. We had a big group today on Zoom and everybody I didn't say hello to this morning. I say hello now. Most important time is I get out of my mind and all this thinking and just get into my dancing here. And I'm going to ask everybody just to just dance in place in your seat. And thanks for everybody who joined us late that I didn't get to say hello to. Good to see you, Mohan. Good to see you, Kim. Good to see you too, Patricia, Carla, Scott Mueller, Doggy Dog, and Shelter. Did you see that thing I posted yesterday? When we were on a poster in the back of a Friends episode. That was pretty cool. Don Cayley, good to see you. Param Shreya Das, good to see you, brother. Haribo. Shrivarupaji, good to see you. Ready? Suryaji, good to see you. Surya Radhika, good to see you. Lauren Carmen. Shivrada.